Chapter 2, Dirty Laundry. "It's all gonna be all right," I whispered. "What did you say?" I turned to see my Charlie standing next to me. Well, his real name was Julian, but since that play we did in high school, he would always be my Charlie. "Oh, I was just whispering that old hymn, 'It's all gonna be all right.'" I turned back to the crowd, but he was gone, my Sam. I watched as he walked out of those church doors. I smoothed out the creases in my black dress and turned back to Julian. "Thank you for being here." I gave him a hug. "Oh, of course. I can't believe this is happening. I just saw Ransom the other day as he gave me a list of things he wanted me to do around the pool. He was telling me to plant sunflowers, but I said, 'Sir, sunflower season is almost over.' But he didn't care. He wanted them for his lady." With that, a tear fell down my cheek. Ransom, my husband. I stood there at the front of that sanctuary, right next to his casket. He passed so suddenly no one knew what to think. The doctors think it was a heart attack. I thought it could be liver failure. All that whiskey and beer. It's all he drank. Julian actually introduced him to whiskey. Or perhaps it was too many cherries. "Well, you've been so helpful around our house. I don't know what we would have done without you, Charlie." He smiled at the nickname, leaned in, and gave me another hug. "I'll always be here for you." And with that, he kissed the side of my neck. I bit my lower lip. The rest of the day, no matter who came up to me to give their condolences, there were only two things I could think of: how Samuel just walked out without saying a word to me, and that kiss on my neck. Maybe if I hadn't been so distracted, I would have noticed that Julian left with her. After the service, I returned home, pouring a glass of rosé, and there he was, waiting for me. He had a key to the house. As our gardener, he did a variety of different projects for Ransom. My husband was a construction worker and had no time to deal with the flowers around the yard, so I hired Julian to help me out. Ransom always needed an excuse to smack me. I did my best to make sure I didn't give him a reason. Maybe that's why it was so easy to fall quickly into the arms of Julian. No, I'm not that kind of girl. Sure, I gave him a glance now and then, especially when he would mow the grass. The sweat glistened off his mocha skin. But I was true to my husband, loyal. I never cheated. Besides, if Ransom ever discovered I was having an affair, I would be a dead woman. So after so many years of built-up lust for each other, it was at that moment I let it release. I dropped my glass on the floor, staining the carpet. Screw it. Ransom wasn't there anymore to scream at me about it. Julian took me in his arms. I shivered, taking in the salt of his lips. Tearing his shirt off and throwing it across the room, he unzipped my dress, watching it fall around my feet. Ransom hated clothes lying all over the place, even if they were his own that he threw there. Smack! Julian lifted me up into his arms and led me to the bedroom. All the way up the spiral staircase, I continued to taste his tan body, sipping up his hot skin along his neck, down his shoulder. He placed me gently on the bed. Kneeling down, he took my arms gently, stopped them from shaking. "What?" He looked back into mine. "It's just, Ransom was so rough, I don't know what to do." He leaned in, his face close enough he could breathe in my Dior perfume. "Let me show you how a real man makes love to a woman." And with that, I finally made love, for the first time. He made me feel like I mattered. He made me feel alive. Julian moved in that weekend. Sure, people talked. They always liked to talk. There were rumors that we were having an affair while I was married. Some say he killed Ransom, and worse, some say I killed Ransom. But that was the least of my worries. Julian continued to work around town at the local flower shop in lawn care. I was walking around, collecting the clothes that ended up all over the house. He sure knew how to make love. I mean, give me love. And then I found it. There was lipstick on his white-collared shirt, but it wasn't my shade of pink. I took in the scent of his shirt. The smell coming off the collar was of perfume about $40 too cheap. Then there was the little wine stain on the pocket of his white cotton thread, and everything in this house was either whiskey or beer, and that man should know better that I don't drink red. It was just sitting there in the corner, wadded up on our bedroom floor. He could have hid it in the closet, or he could have burned it, or he could have said, "Oh, I must have lost that shirt. That dirty, no-good son of a..." I don't know what came over me. I was going to hang him out to dry, clothespinned all his secrets on the line, just let them blow in the wind. I should have known better. He kept sneaking in after midnight, always the same old story. "I'm late again, I'm so sorry." There isn't enough Ajax in the world to wash out all of his dirty laundry. It didn't take long for word to get around town about the shirt hanging out on our front lawn. "Oh, you know Miss Cranston was going to ask. I'm not covering anything up. I'll show how he just drug me along through the mud. And that button-down shirt, I'll keep hanging out on the porch. There's no coming back home, no knocking on my door." "Jenny!" I could have heard him anywhere in that house. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" He stormed into the living room with that white shirt in his hand. "Oh, hey, hon, thanks for grabbing that shirt off the line." "Don't pull that shit with me. What are you playing at?" He had never cursed at me. In fact, he had never raised his voice at me. "Whose perfume is that?" He paused, struck at my question. Nothing to say. "Who's been drinking red wine for you to get that stain on your cotton thread?" Still nothing. "Oh, you got nothing to say now? Whose pink lipstick is on your collar?" Nothing. "Julian!" Causing him to startle. I don't think I've ever raised my voice. "I'm sorry." This voice was barely audible. Now I was shocked. "What?" I was not expecting an apology. Ransom never apologized. "It was her idea." Confusion stuck my face. Who was her? What idea? Cassie. Cassie O'Grady? Yes, I love her. I've always loved her. But I never intended on falling in love with you as well. "You love me?" He walked over to me, dropping the dirty laundry on the floor. "Cassie told me we could swindle Ransom millions, and that bastard wouldn't even realize he was losing money." He reached out for my hands. "When I started working for your husband, doing little things, Cassie had this crazy idea. I don't know. I talked with Ransom and tried to get him to give me access to his accounts, so that way I didn't have to bother him to pay me for this or that. He'd tell me what to do, and then I'd just grab the funds and do it. He was hesitant at first. What in the world was he talking about? That would have never worked. Ransom didn't even let me have access to our accounts. Then he hesitated before he began the next part. Well, I knew how he mistreated you, and I told Cassie. She told me to use that against him. So I asked him again, saying that you were dipping into the funds and that I could make sure that you never touched a dime. I'd handle everything. The bastard. I remember that night. He came home one night and tore into me. He wouldn't stop hitting me. He beat me black and blue. He never said why. Julian had told him I was taking money for myself. He used me as a tool to weasel his way into accessing our money. My eyes burned with fire. He took a step back. So I began taking money from his accounts and giving them to Cassie. But wait. I took an angry step towards him. Jenny, listen. I knew I was wrong, using you for myself, and I saw you that day after. After Ransom had beaten me almost to the end of life, Ransom left for the night to drink, and Julian stopped by. He found me in a ball, shaking, shivering, crying. I saw you broken that day, and I knew I had caused it. My heart broke. So I used his money. I left you diamonds. I bought you beautiful clothes. I left you roses. It was Julian all along. I thought they were pitiful excuses of Ransom's apologies. Julian bought all those things for me? I never knew. But after he died suddenly, Cassie told me that you were too dumb to realize it too. She told me to get close to you, to make you fall in love with me, and I could continue to take money from you. But she didn't know that I already fell in love with you. He pulled my hands up to his lips, but before he could kiss them, I pulled them away. You were stealing money from us? I stepped away from him. Tears started to fill my eyes. He took a step forward towards me. Was the room spinning? Why was I so dizzy? I can't believe this. I just thought... I took a seat. He came to my side, kneeling, groveling at my feet, holding my legs in a tight hug. Jenny, I love you. I promise I'll make Cassie give all the money back. But Ransom was a monster. I saw what he did to you. Please let me fix this. I love you. Suddenly it stopped. The room stilled. My eyes dried up. I had no more tears left to cry. My eyes narrowed. My heart hardened. You love me? I stood, clenching my fists. Daggers shot out of my eyes, stabbing into his soul 100 times. He flew backwards, crawling away. Jenny, please. What? I screamed. You love me? You stole from me, from us? Ransom trusted you. I trusted you. He continued to back away, fear in his eyes. Please don't kill me. I stopped. My eyes softened. Kill you? Why would I? Then it hit me. You think I killed Ransom? No, that's not what... It's just everyone in town thought you killed... I never believed it. I didn't mean you were going to kill me. He stumbled to find his words. Oh, Julian. I knelt beside him. Fear still filled his eyes. I'm not going to kill you. My voice was tender to his ears. His tense face relaxed for a moment. I reached out, tenderly holding his cheeks. I wiped away a tear falling from his eyes. No, Julian, I'm not going to kill you. I tightened my grip on either side of his face. Fear returned to his eyes. You're going to pay for all the damage you've caused. I'm going to destroy you. You will burn. With that, I pushed his face away and stormed out. Julian stayed, stone cold with fear. I stomped up the stairs, keeping my eyes fixated on him as I climbed the staircase that lined the room. What are you going to do? He whispered. I continued staring at him, stabbing him with each dagger I could muster out of my glare. What are you going to do? He shouted a little louder. We locked eyes, not breaking. Jenny, please, what? And I stormed into our bedroom. I could still hear him whimpering down on the lower floor. How could he? I trusted him so much. He was the one I could turn to after Ransom. He picked me up in my grief. He cared for me. He loved me. He said he loved me. Did he truly love me? Was I just a piece in his game of chess? A pawn he could discard? Or did this pawn turn into his queen? I stripped the drawers, throwing them open. I shared my space with him. He was living here. I ran to the window, throwing it open, and began tossing his clothes out onto the front lawn. Jenny, what are you doing? I could hear him downstairs. Clearly, he could see his clothes falling from the second floor as they fell in front of our door. I prayed Miss Cranston was out there, calling all our neighbors to share the scene. I wanted him to pay. Climbing through the closet, I ripped his suits off the hangers, grabbed anything I could find of his, tossing them out into the yard. Jenny! Soon I could hear the running as he climbed up the stairs. Grabbing his shoes, I tossed them out with the rest of his clothes. Jenny, stop! He stood at the door frame as I was ready to toss his guitar out the window. I stared back at him. Please, Jenny, I'm sorry. I said I'm going to make you pay. And out the window the guitar went. No! He shouted, rushing to the window, but it was too late. His black guitar flew to the ground where his clothes were, shattering into pieces. He reached the window, staring down at the mess below. Before he could turn back to me, I was gone, out the door. Jenny! He shouted to me. Down the stairs I flew. I raced to the basement, grabbing the items I needed. I found him kneeling on the ground, trying to pick up the pieces of his prized guitar. A couple people gathered at the end of our drive. Sure enough, there was Miss Cranston. He spun around on his knees as I tossed a glass full of liquid into his face. He tried to wipe the liquid off his face. Is this gasoline? Julian, you're going to burn. Fear struck his face yet again, but I wasn't burning him. I took the gasoline container in my hands and sprayed it all over his clothes, his shoes, his items. Jenny, please stop. But I wasn't stopping. Like I said, he was going to burn, going to pay. More people flooded the bottom of our drive. Murmurs flooded up to us. Someone was even on their phone, hopefully calling the police. Let them come. See the monster I let into my life. Another had their phone out recording. They want a show? I'll give them a show. I trusted you, Julian, and you lied to me. He stayed on his knees, doused in gasoline. Fear and pain filled his eyes. You stole from us, stealing from the people who let you live with us. But then after Ransom died, I thought I would never love again. And then my eyes were opened to what real love was when you took me in your arms. I walked over to him. You said you loved me. Jenny, I do love you. He leapt to his feet, reaching for my hands. I ripped them from his. I ripped the shirt from behind my back. His white button-up with the lipstick on the collar, the red wine stain on his pocket of his white cotton thread peeking out, drenched in cheap perfume, and had a little extra stench of gasoline. If you loved me, then you would not have cheated me all my money, cheated me all my love. You cheated on me. That's not love. I took his favorite lighter. His eyes widened. I licked the end of the shirt with the flame. It soon engulfed, turning quickly from white to black. I tossed it into the pile with the rest of his belongings. The flames erupted in the pile. I tossed the lighter to join the rest of the flames. With that, I turned on my heel and stomped back into the house, slamming the door behind me, just in time for the sky to be flooded with blue lights. The fire department drowned the flames. Most of his clothes were burned to nothing. That should have been it. Julian took care of the department, shooed everyone away. He should have left as well. I shouldn't have let him back, but I did. I still couldn't get over the fact that even though he used me, causing Ransom to almost kill me, but he was just a puppet, was he not? He saw me, cared for me. He picked me back up at one of my toughest moments, and from there, used Ransom's own money to treat me like the queen I deserved to be treated. So I let the weasel back into the house, my house. As I watched him walk in, he stared into my eyes, staring through pools he collected there, and his dark eyes were also stained with rivers. I couldn't smile. He whimpered like a kicked puppy. We had dinner that night, chicken and gravy. I didn't speak a word to him. He showered, trying to wash off the gasoline, fire soot, shame. As he showered, I noticed the gun cabinet was unlocked, a 9mm missing from the case. I didn't sleep with him that night. He could have the master bedroom. I decided I was not going to stay there that night. My alibi was that I was at a friend's home, which she can confirm I was with her that night. I'm sure he expected me to cuddle up beside him. Instead, he cuddled up to a bullet in his head. One thing I don't think anyone could have known, maybe not even Julian. The last thing he saw was that 9mm barrel and a flash of light. No more dirty laundry.